Please stand for a silent reflection and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Here.
Mr. Diver?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Tinkin? Mr. Vorbach?
Here.
Mayor Mechanica?
Here. Please read the Open Public Meeting Act. Okay.
Pursuant to the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, a notice of this meeting has been provided was published as a legal notice in the Coast Star and is included in our annual meeting notice. Notice has also been posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda with a few additions. The resolution R 2013-87, this is the resolution authorizing the execution of a settlement agreement with Mary Grace Newhouse, and also add to the consent agenda the outdoor music permit for Linda Brennan, Wall Road.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call check.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Okay, yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
Yes.
No presentation at this time. We do have a public hearing for ordinance number 2013-3, and this is the LoSAP Service Award Program. You have a motion and a second?
To open the public hearing, Mayor.
Yes, open the public.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
If anyone would like to speak on ordinance 2013-3, amending the length of service award for LoSAP, please step forward and give your name and address.
And essentially, Mayor and members of the council, this is being brought forward to the council at the request of Wade Algio, captain of the Spring Lake First Aid Squad, who had requested this amendment to the LoSAP schedule that will require members to participate and receive a minimum number of 60 points from emergency calls in order to qualify for LoSAP credit.
Seeing no hands, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Budget amendment R 2013-8.
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Delaney, just so that I'm clear, was that a motion that you just took to close the public hearing or a motion on the actual ordinance itself? Close the public hearing, so we need to call for a motion and a second and a vote on the ordinance itself.
Thank you, Fred. Need a motion on the ordinance, to adopt ordinance
To adopt the ordinance.
2013-3.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Do you have any questions on the ordinance? Roll call, Jay.
On the motion to adopt the ordinance, Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
Yes.
I need a motion for budget amendment R 2013-80.
I'll make that motion.
Got a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have any questions, or Jay, is,
Yes, Mayor, if you'd like, I'll go through. This proposed amendment has been published together with a notice indicating that there would be a hearing on this amendment tonight. And essentially, as we have discussed at previous meetings, there were a number of amendments that were required, some of which were technical, resulting from the review by the Division of Local Government Services. Most importantly, the amendment and copies have been distributed and are available for the public. As we have previously discussed, first of all, going down under general revenues, we have included the anticipation of revenues from the Clean Communities Program and the Click It or Ticket Program. Those are what I would describe as housekeeping matters. Those grants are now, the amounts have been made available to us. Through the course of the year, there will be additional grants that carry with them an appropriation. And as those funds become available, we will amend our budget after adoption as well. But since these amounts are known to us at this point, we have included the revenues as well as the appropriation of these funds for those purposes. The next item on the amendment is a change under FEMA reimbursement Hurricane Sandy. The budget as introduced provided for an anticipation of $175,000 after long discussions with the Division of Local Government Services. That amount is being reduced to $28,000. Essentially, it was our position that we anticipate that those revenues will be received. We have actually submitted to date reimbursements in the amount of some $250,000, 90% of which will be coming back to us from FEMA for that. And we felt strongly that those funds will be received in this calendar year and should be anticipated in this calendar year. Local government took a hardline position on this and essentially said until those funds are received or until we have a determination from FEMA that they have approved that request, that we cannot anticipate the full amount. They did allow for $28,000 anticipation, which essentially reflects the portion of the special emergency that we are self-funding in this year's budget. As a result of that loss of revenue, together with, well, there's an offsetting. The next item change is receipts from delinquent taxes. We were able, as again resulting from discussions with local government, to increase our anticipation of delinquent taxes. You can see that at line 6, the amount to be raised from taxation is increasing by a slight amount, about $3,000. It has really no significant impact in our tax rate. It is an increase, although it's essentially a rounding amount that translates out to 2/100ths of a cent increase. That's not a 2-cent increase, but rather 2/100ths of a cent. So it's not a significant change.
Still 0.00.
Under appropriations, as a result of, again, some technical changes that were necessitated, as well as the desire to maintain this tax rate at essentially a flat level compared to last year, there are a number of amendments, and I'll go through them. Under general administration, salary and wages, increasing from $105,500 to $113,500. General administration, other expenses, reduction from $40,000 to $36,000. Mayor and council other expenses, a reduction from $2,500 to $1,000. Municipal clerk salary and wages, an increase from $72,000 to $79,000. Municipal clerk other expenses, a reduction from $6,800 to $6,600. Finance administration other expenses, a reduction from $49,000 to $37,647.99. Revenue administration other expenses, a reduction from $21,000 to $19,000. Tax assessment administration salary and wages, a reduction from $29,000 to $27,000. Tax assessment other expenses reduced from $7,000 to $5,000. Legal services other expenses, a reduction from $80,000 to $66,000. Engineering services other expenses, a reduction from $22,000 to $15,000. Planning board other expenses reduced from $3,000 to $2,000. Board of Adjustment other expenses reduced from $3,000 to $2,000. Zoning code enforcement salary and wages reduced from $28,000 to $26,000. Police department salary and wages, $1,241,000 to $1,351,000. Police department other expenses, a reduction from $40,000 to $32,000. Emergency management salary and wages reduced from $3,000 to $2,500. Supplemental fire services reduced from $2,030 to $500. Fire Safety Act salary and wages reduced from $14,500 to $13,500. Fire Safety Act other expenses reduced from $2,000 to $1,400. Prosecutor's office other expense increased from $250 to $500. Municipal court salary and wages increased from $0 to $15,000. Municipal court other expenses increased from $100 to $500. Fire department salary and wages reduced from $5,000 to $2,500. Fire department other expenses reduced from $174,000 to $160,000. Streets and road maintenance salary and wages reduced from $672,500 to $537,500. Street and road maintenance other expenses reduced from $22,500 to $18,000. Solid waste collection other expenses from $2,400 to $2,000. Buildings and grounds other expenses reduced from $52,000 to $46,000. Vehicle maintenance other expenses reduced from $64,000 to $52,000. Accumulated leave compensation reduced from $5,000 to $1,000. Utilities reduced from $234,000 to $227,000. Sanitary landfill other expenses reduced from $140,000 to $126,000. As a result, the total appropriations has changed, as well as the breakdown of salary and wages. Moving on to contribution to public employees retirement system, a change from $143,500 to $139,435. Contribution to Social Security increased from $185,000 to $185,924.69. Likewise, as a result of that, the total statutory expenditures has changed, as have the total appropriations within caps. Outside of caps, we have increased the stormwater management salary and wages from $0 to $90,000. Reserve for tax appeals has been reduced from $40,000 to $4,000. The LoSAP first aid has been reduced from $12,000 to $11,000. The LoSAP Fire Company has been reduced from $45,000 to $41,000. Shared service agreements, the Monmouth County RIM other expenses reduced from $3,000 to $0. And as I previously mentioned, here we are appropriating funds for the Clean Communities Program in the amount of the $11,764.15, and likewise the $4,000 being appropriated under the Click It or Ticket. Again, the various subtotals have changed, as well as the salary and wage and other expense detail. At what is marked as line M, the reserve for uncollected taxes, that has also increased from $314,072.12 to $361,973.66. Total appropriations therefore have changed from what had, with the budget as introduced, $5,580,152.12. That total appropriations has been reduced to $5,496,209.49. On the water sewer utility budget, which is the portion of our budget that is not funded or supported by tax dollars, but is rather supported by the user fees that are generated from the water sewer utility, the surplus anticipated has been reduced from $200,000 to $109,000, and there is a offsetting, the anticipated revenue from increased fees is being increased from $312,814.61 to $403,814.61. John Barrett, our financial advisor, is present. He conducted most of the discussions directly with local government services. If there are questions on any of these specific items, I'd be happy to provide the explanation. In total, as indicated in the green budget worksheet, there is a slight increase in the amount to be raised from taxes, but is still essentially level from last year's tax rate.
Thank you, Jerry. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Barrett? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. On the water sewer budget, the surplus anticipated drops from 200,000 to 109. What was the driver behind that?
When we did a review with the state, there was a deferred charge in the sewer utility, therefore only giving us an opportunity to utilize 109,000 of fund
In other words,
balance.
we owed money and we had to.
Well, it's a deferred charge. It had to do with how we anticipated revenues last year in the utility budget. This year, we have the results of 4 quarters of the new rate structure in town. So based on our estimates, we anticipate, we're anticipating to realize what we budgeted for in the revised amendment for the 400,000 of additional revenue. So next year, as we move forward, we'll be basically lumping all those revenues into just one major one called rents. So that was basically an administrative change there.
All right, and then there were a lot of things that went down, which is great, but I'm just taking like streets and road maintenance. You went from 672,000 and change to 537,000 and change. Is that,
Yeah, I'll be happy to. In the original budget, we had basically taken the stormwater management salaries, that 90,000 that we appropriate outside of cap, and we had lumped it into one operation for public works. Based on the past practice of doing that, it became an issue with regard to your inside the cap appropriations. So it was responsible for us to basically restore how we budgeted for that in prior years. And in fact, the 90,000 we budgeted for in line item 8 of stormwater management salaries and wages is basically that delta.
okay, so there really is no change.
Presentation issue, really nothing material. The only,
Different column, same money.
You understand.
I would point out to you one of the things that could prevent possibly a question from you is, in line M, the reserve fund collected taxes went from 314,000 to 361. Originally, I was utilizing a 3-year collection rate. The state felt it better to utilize last year's collection rate, so we had to up that. The end result of that is it's going to give you more of a cushion should there be any type of large delinquencies at the end of the year or any kind of bankruptcies or there. It's basically a more conservative way of budgeting.
It's a larger reserve.
Understood. And then you have this one?
Well, as you're referring to it, I should note that the green budget, there are dark bullet marks in front of all of the items that have changed. So any of the items that are reflected in the amendment are noted on the revised budget by the dark block in front of the appropriations for the current year.
On line 3, the current fund, for 2013, it goes from 432,000 and change. But formerly in 2012, it was 623,000.
Right, that's the audited fund balance. Also, the 2013 figures, the unaudited fund balance from the annual financial statement. So it was representing there is that in the beginning of 2012 fiscal year, you started out with 623,000 change of surplus, utilized $445,000 to balance last year's budget. This year, with an availability of $432,000, you utilized $290,000 to balance this year's budget. So you're actually utilizing less than the prior year.
What's driving that, would you say?
That's just simply the availability of cash surplus.
All right, good. It's good. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, okay.
And this does reflect, I don't have available to me a longer historical perspective on what our surplus has been, but again, it had been the determination that our level of surplus was significant and was probably larger than it needed to be given the nature of our revenues. We don't have really much in terms of revenues that are subject to either weather, like beach revenues or parking revenues. So our level of surplus has been intentionally reduced to a more, for lack of a better term, appropriate level, given the economic times. We may actually see that reverse in future years, but given the current economic environment, the determination was to reduce as much as possible while still maintaining a safe level of surplus, that the surplus be used as best we can to offset taxes.
Yeah, of course, I'm going to text. One last question is on the municipal prosecutor's office, municipal court, and salary, wages, and other expenses. It's not a big item, but there's, percentage-wise, a pretty big jump. What's driving that? Was that, again, a presentation?
Actually, it was part of our review subsequent to the budget being introduced. We had anticipated, the budget had been prepared because this was the first year that we would be reflecting the shared service. Frankly, we neglected to include the salary for the judge
Oh, yeah.
as part of that, so we needed to add that back in. And likewise, the court expenses, although fairly nominal, have been increased from $100 in the introduced budget to $500.
And Council, if you like court revenues for your revenue portion of your budget, we'll make sure you pay the check.
Got to pay the church.
No, just asking a question.
No.
He's more of a housekeeping guy.
Thanks, Toby. Anyone else have a question? My only question is, why was FEMA so resistant?
It's actually the state perspective on that. Some municipalities have already received FEMA reimbursements in some cases, such as neighboring communities in Borough or other towns. You have a deferred charge on the books of $140,000, and we divide that among a 5-year period of time. So we're raising $28,000 a year. So they're letting us anticipate the 28 to balance it out, because they don't want your residents have to incur that expense. And as we get this reimbursement, or hopefully during the course of this year, we're actually going to wipe out the special emergency. There'll be a resolution in front of you to basically cancel or zero it out. So in the next 4 years' budget, presuming we get at least $140,000 of reimbursement, this storm emergency will have negated itself for the residents of the township, of the borough.
It's almost an example of, I'll use the analogy, pay as you go.
Well, exactly.
We actually paid as we went last year with Hurricane Sandy. We probably should have done a short ban, because then we would have had the revenue in here. And they won't let us anticipate the revenue. We already paid out.
Understood, yeah.
So net, we'll probably wind up with what, approximately another 100,000.
We
Net
expect,
of paying off this thing in its entirety.
That's
It's a
correct.
surplus. That's not reflected in the budget.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else have any question on the amended budget?
and Mayor, since this is a public hearing, if there are no questions from the council, it would be appropriate to solicit comments or questions from the public on the amendment. I will point out that the budget was introduced in April, and we had a public hearing on the budget itself in May. I believe it was May 28th. So this is the opportunity for questions regarding the amendment itself.
If anyone in the public would like to speak on the amended budget, just step forward and give your name and address. Up, seeing no hands. Need a roll call to approve the amended budget amendment. Motion and second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call check.
This is on the motion to adopt
The
the
amendment.
amendment. Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mr. Dibber?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
Thank you.
Fine.
Five. Oh,
Unanimous.
Okay, so-
And Mayor, that means that the amendment has been adopted. We have listed under resolutions, the resolution actually adopting the budget as amended. So we'll take that into force during the meeting.
That is resolution
Uh,
81. 81. Is that correct, Jay?
I'm sorry, Mayor?
81?
That would be, yes, it's resolution 2013-81.
Okay.
Okay.
At this point in the meeting, we have the first voice of the public. I need a motion to open the first voice of the public.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
You may speak on any agenda item. Step forward and give your name and address.
Sharon Yantel, Beverly Avenue. I'm a little surprised to see the ordinance back on the agenda. As I understood, I thought it was going back to the, thank you, back to the planning board first before it came back to the council. So here it is again. So basically, I guess I don't have much more to add, except that looking at the last only draft that I got, I still feel it's full of holes. There's no impact studies yet that we've heard about, no environmental studies. And another thing that I was thinking, this is like writing a blank check to developers with no rules and there's no design standards at this point. Anything can go in there, any kind of office space with no kind of conformity to the feeling of the town in terms of the architecture. Anything can go in there. And I honestly don't believe that my property values are going to go up living closer to commercial properties. If anything, they're going to go down. And rather than take out the residential element of what exists there, why don't we adjust the zoning to make it all residential and do something wonderful, more appropriate in terms of townhouses or such, like there's where the old nursing home used to be. It's a quiet community. There's no traffic running constantly into Highway 71. And I just always believe that, housing, residential, is going to be a lot better for property values and for the community as a whole. Up the road in West Belmar, that was a very successful little townhome community up there. I believe that most of those things most of the structures are occupied. And there's also, I pulled up on the MLS, there's like 6 pages of empty office and commercial space. Some of them since 2012 that haven't been sold or rented or occupied, and that's just up the road. It's not like it's that far away. And in what is called the Spring Lake Town Center, where the post office is, there's one particular office space there that's been empty as long as I can remember. So I just don't understand how more commercial is really going to be successful. Again, no traffic studies, no town meeting. Where is our town meeting? That the kind we had last time, where people are contacted by mail, because some people don't have computers, so they don't check the agendas for our council meeting. Some people don't bother to read the paper, the Co-Star, because they go online to read everything, so they don't know what's going on. So Mayor, I'm just going to stress and hold you to that. We really need, before we introduce anything, this is so, I'm sorry, this is so loose. This is so non-specific the way it is written, that I just think it's dangerous. It just could be a free-for-all for developers. We're going to make money and then be gone. It's not the best thing for the town. I really think that this is a matter of money for a select few. It's not for the good of all of the citizens. So that's it for now. So I just, again, don't understand why this is back on the agenda when it's supposed to go to the planning board next. So it's like the little ping pong ball again. Thank you.
Anyone else? John?
John Lewis, Prospect Avenue, Spring Lake Heights. I notice under reports, notices, and correspondence, you have an application of development notice by the Aniscato family. Good family, they've got a lot of money tied up in this town, paid a lot of taxes. Are these the same lots here that we're talking about?
Yes, John.
Oh, okay, so the development application notice, what exactly is the development that they are planning?
I believe it's, if I'm not incorrect, it's coming up to the planning board this Wednesday. They filed an application. The application, I believe, has been reviewed by the zoning officer. So it goes on the planning board agenda. I believe it's, I'm not positive it's on this Wednesday, but I think it is.
And that's for the current zoning?
That is correct.
The way it is
Oh,
now.
okay, so,
The way it is now.
all right, so they've submitted an application for a plan, and if we went to the zoning board meeting, is that?
Planning board meeting.
A planning board meeting, is it any viewable to
Oh,
people right now?
absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. If you go to the planning board meeting, the plans will be out there on boards.
oh, I had a planning board meeting, but we couldn't come into the
It's
Borough
not a
Hall
council
and see
meeting.
it.
Oh, you can come into Borough Hall. I believe that once a plan is filed, it's a public document. I believe you can come in and
So
view it.
Jay,
Anybody
you
can.
have this notice right here that they're talking about?
Yes, that's actually filed with the planning board secretary, but
My thing is to allay some of the fears of the people. If there are plans out there, at least now there's one plan here for the current zoning.
And if I may, Mayor, the public notice specifically indicates that the
That's
application
all I wanted to straighten.
Has been
Thanks.
filed.
is seeking approval to create two single.
It's public policy. We had the meeting, we notified the entire town and overwhelmingly against this. Overwhelmingly.
We heard that, Tom?
Yeah, Mayor, the reason why I wanted to table is, okay, apart from being inconsistent, I mean, we don't have a written statement that it's consistent with the master plan.
Doesn't do that.
I don't understand why we're introducing it, but a fully commercial zone might be the greatest thing in the world. It might be. But since we had so many people against it, and I was under the impression we were going to have more meetings to hear from the town folks, you know, I don't see the point in rushing this through.
Tom,
I may end up supporting it, but
But that's the problem.
Tom, if we had another meeting, believe me, you know what would be said, would be for it, would be against it. It would be counterproductive.
But also, look at it this way. We now have an application by the owner of this property that's within the confines of the current, so why in the world are we introducing this? Let's see if this gets passed Wednesday, 2 days. See if this passes the planning board muster. They can then go ahead and build within the confines of the footprint of the current zones we now have.
So you're satisfied with having residential and commercial there?
It's
Okay.
within, it's what the,
I'm just
it's what the original.
I'm just asking,
footprint is.
so everyone will have their way. Some are for commercial, some are against it. Some are for residential, some are against. So everyone will have their way. We'll have residential, we'll have commercial.
No,
That's
no,
it.
no, this is not
wait,
residential
wait,
commercial.
wait.
There's no option for commercial, for residential here. The planning board has completely neutered us as far as that's concerned.
There's an
It's
option
commercial
now.
only. It was never even brought to us.
I'm
In fact,
speaking
if it
about-
wasn't for Kat Crippen, who got up here and said that this was, we were also recommended for residential and mixed use.
Okay, so the property gets developed. 2 residentials, 2 commercials, correct?
If it's
Okay.
within the.
Now the next person sells their property. Now what? Commercial, residential again? So everybody's just satisfied again.
Everybody in town has a zoned property. Mayor. Everybody has a zoned property. You're talking, for the first time, I mean, in probably years, we're talking about changing the zoning and the footprint of this town. And I feel that it is, it is not for the benefit of this town.
Okay, who's it the benefit for?
You can have commercial.
Who's it benefiting, if not the town?
The current commercial, it's zoned commercially right now. They can put 2 commercial buildings. The current application is for 2 commercial buildings,
Correct.
right? 2 commercial buildings on the highway.
And we have no control over it.
We don't have control. We have control. The planning board has control. The reason why they have not
Right now.
The reason why they have not developed this to this day is because they want to do something bigger and better than what the current confines of the zoning calls for. And they want a bunch of variances that the planning board had said no. I was on the planning board. They came to us. It was a really nice plan. I liked it. And as I said in the 2011, the March 11th meeting, I liked the plan. The point is that I wanted the residents to be notified of what was going to go on, to see if you know, what's going to go forward. So,
Political posturing.
I hope
Anything else?
that in good conscience, this council will table this and let the public be fully aware that there's going to be an introduction going forward. If you want to introduce this next July, whatever the meeting is, July 8th or whatever, then let the public know and let the co-star print it and say, we're going to introduce this.
That's not the process. It's simply not the process.
Mayor, I'd like to just comment. First, there are multiple lots that are subject to the potential rezoning. So the applicant that currently has the development application before the planning board is the owner of 4, but there are 7 others that are part of the proposed rezoning. And I'm not taking a position at all on the introduction or adoption of this ordinance, but I will say that it is very common in municipalities that are moving forward with rezoning ordinances, that the council or their governing body, whatever their form of government, will introduce an ordinance, then it gets sent to the planning board for a determination as to whether the ordinance is consistent or not consistent with the master plan. So some municipalities send it even prior to introduction, but I will say it's common practice in a lot of towns to introduce and then send it to planning board. But again, I will totally leave that to your discretion on whatever you want to do.
So possibly then, Brad, what you're saying is that we could just table it tonight and then we could send it to the planning board with regards, which I thought that's what we were doing.
Well, two weeks ago, you said it wasn't consistent, we needed something in writing.
Right, and you said not to introduce.
I didn't say it wasn't consistent, I said there was nothing
Right, nothing
that
in writing,
clarified.
that's what I said.
Yes.
Yeah, and we still don't have anything in writing.
Correct, but what I'm saying is
And you
that
wrote a
it's,
letter to him.
yes, absolutely, I've now referred this to the planning board per your direction at the last council meeting. But what I'm just clarifying is that it's not uncommon for municipalities to introduce an ordinance and then to send a letter like what I sent to the planning board for a request for a consistency review
Isn't that
report.
convenient?
No, I'm not going to make a comment like that, but I just don't see the need to rush this through. My problem is we don't have,
Let him speak.
excuse me.
Let him speak. Let him speak.
You know, we were, back in, was it March, we had the big meeting, we were told about, we wanted traffic studies, we wanted land use studies.
That happens later.
We
Can't
were
you
ju-
get that?
Mayor.
You're out of order.
Yeah, it's time to close it
Mayor.
down.
There will be a second public comment period for anyone from the public.
I recommend to my councilwoman King, will you please withdraw your motion?
I don't think I can.
We still have the motion for.
There's a motion to
King.
table on the table right now, Mayor.
Any other questions? Roll call,
So
Jeff.
this is a vote on the motion to table the ordinance.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mr. Diver?
No.
Mrs. King?
No.
Mr. Schuler?
No.
Mr. Vorbach?
Yes.
Mayor, the motion to table has been defeated. We still have a motion for the introduction, which has been made and seconded.
Do you have any questions? Roll call, Jeff.
On the motion to introduce ordinance as was mentioned with the modifications, this would carry ordinance number 2013-04. Mrs. Cynthia?
No.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
No.
The motion to introduce has passed, Mayor.
Next discussion item is the, Jay, you have anything you want to say about the CD?
Mayor, just that regarding the CDBG, that's Community Development Block Grant Program. That is a program of federal funds that are allocated to the county, and the county has a program committee that reviews applications. The timeline this year is that submission of applications are due by July 12th. There is also a requirement that in the event the municipality chooses to submit an application, there are two required hearings. The first is a hearing at which we solicit comments from the public on proposed items to consider as an application, and then whatever application would be chosen, if there's more than one, would be the subject of a hearing before the council, because the council is the one that actually authorizes the submission of the application. And that the first meeting is scheduled Monday afternoon at 1 p.m. here in this room. And again, that's for any individuals or groups within the community to offer suggestions on applications to be considered.
Thank you, Jay.
Mayor, before you move on, I'm sorry, Councilman Deverman, is that on the CDBG?
Right. This is, for the public's knowledge, this concerns the redevelopment, or I should say redevelopment, improvements to the community center on Ocean Road. Monday, July 1st, as Jay said, there'll be a meeting here at 2 p.m. to solicit ideas from the public, but this strictly concerns the community center, which is in dire need of repair and renovation. There'll be a borough council, will be a public hearing on this on, I believe, on the 8th.
That's correct.
Correct? The application deadline, I know, is Friday, July 12th. But again, we're trying to, it is possible to get funds from the county to do this. And again, the community center is in dire need of renovation and repair. And it's something that's probably long overdue, especially given the shape of some of the various rooms and whatnot that are there that need modernization. But we will be able to apply for grants for this, and that's why we want to proceed with this, and to try and make the deadline, and finally move this project forward. That's it?
And that meeting at 1 o'clock on the 1st in this room?
I believe so.
On the 1st, it's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, I'm sorry, 2 o'clock in this room. All right.
And again, if any members of the council have other items to be suggested, just reach out to me for, there are some guidelines that limit what the funding can be used for. Primarily, it's for what are described as community development projects geared towards those that benefit low, moderate income seniors. Those that are handicapped are presumed to meet the requirements. But in any event, we're looking at the community center and any other comments or suggestions that come about from our meeting next Monday.
I did have one thing I wanted to mention, Mayor, before you went into the Mayor and Council report section. I wanted to make certain that it was clear when the public hearing is going to be held on that ordinance that you've just introduced, because as we've discussed previously, there is a legal requirement that notice has to go out at least 10 days prior to all who own property within the district that's being rezoned, as well as those who own property within 200 feet of the zone, and that's got to be by certified and regular mail.
So they will be notified by the ones with 200?
Everybody who owns property within the zone being changed, and everyone within 200 feet of the zone's boundaries.
Okay, so can I get a list of all the people 200
Certainly.
200 feet within?
We'll make that
Just
available.
for Sharon.
That list will be prepared, and because of the notice requirements, those notices go out later this week.
And then the petition of 20% of the people that are 200 feet within that zone, that has to be submitted before the final introduction? Or how
It's
does that work?
introduced, there's no final.
At any point, Councilwoman Cynthia, prior to the night that you have this scheduled for public hearing and final adoption, as long as a protest is filed with the municipal clerk, and the municipal clerk is able to verify that it contains signatures of at least 20% of the property owners who have been noticed, then it requires that the zoning ordinance must receive a 2/3 vote of the council in order for it to be duly adopted.
And so, and 2/3 would be
4 council members, 4 affirmative votes of council members.
of council members,
Council
not
members.
not the mayor breaking the
No,
tie.
not the mayor breaking the tie.
That's your only option, Sharon.
July 8th.
Yes, that's our next meeting date, July 8th.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council reports, Mr. Borback.
Be quiet.
Cindy?
No, I don't have.
I have 2 things. First, I'm going to give a report on behalf of Mr. Tinkin, who is not here. Apparently, Sean Heater, who is on the Recreation Committee, has been able to schedule some concerts at the gazebo here by Borough Hall for Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. And the dates are this coming Thursday, the 27th. And then in July, there will be a concert on the 11th and the 25th, and in August on the 8th and the 15th. The first concert is going to be a summer concert kickoff with Billy Lawler. The second concert is a band called Don't Know Jack. The third concert is a band called Enjoy. Then in August, the first concert is Blue Highways, and then the second concert is Strictly 60s Band. So since Mr. Tinkin isn't here, I just wanted to let everybody know. My report, I don't have anything specific with public safety, but I do have something that was in our packets that is very near and dear to me, and that is an issue that has been brought to us by a resident on Grieve Avenue, Cara Matunis. And it is reference to the fire whistles. This has been a long-standing issue for my family. When this whistle first went in, back in the 1950s, my mother got up a petition to have it taken away. It sits right on the edge of residential properties, and when it blares, it really rattles. And I brought this up again in my first term on council, and was told that the whistle was needed so that people could be made aware that there was a fire going on at the time, and they would get out of the way of the fire trucks. Well, Cara has done quite a bit of research here, and her letter is very, very good, very specific. She's got a lot of excellent information in here. And basically what it boils down to is that we are in a time frame now where the whistles are really kind of antiquated. They don't really serve that much of a purpose. The firemen have their beepers, they have all kinds of, contact ways, cell phones, whatever. And what's interesting is we only have about 7 or 8 firemen, as I'm told, that actually live in town. A lot of the other firemen are not even residents. So if the whistle goes off, what benefit is it for them? So as a concerned citizen, council person, and seeing this letter from Cara Matunis, I think it's time that we as a council address this situation and do what a lot of other towns have done, and that is try to have something different for contacting, our fire people. Whether, as Cara mentions in here, some towns have done away with it completely. They only are going to use the whistle if it's a real emergency, like a flood situation or something where the people have to be notified. There's other towns that have changed the tone. Some of them don't use the blaring whistle. If you're not used to it and you live right under this whistle and it goes off, I can't even begin to tell you what it's like. So I really think that now that we don't have the Board of Commissioners and we have a little bit of say with the fire company, I think that we should start to address this issue. We're in 2013 now, and I don't think that we really need to go any further.
Councilman Borough would like to comment.
Yeah, I'm completely agree with you. Just this past week, I had more than one resident complaining about the air raid siren on top of the Tot Park on the south end of town.
By the community center.
At the community center, he's there with his, this particular gentleman was there with his grandchildren, and the thing blasts. And yeah, they have signs, but it's an attractive nuisance,
It's unnerving.
And so I am fully supportive of, for lack of a better term, pulling the plug.
I have to also agree. I think we, at one point, when Woodstoll District brought this issue up, but because of the fact that it was a district, we might have had a little bit more problems that we currently don't have. Also, I mean, I still think there's a need for the sirens in the sense that, for instance, when we had the flood the one night, it was in the middle of the night, or whatever, blurted, but that way the residents would be aware that when the sirens go off, it's a true emergency for the town, such as a tornado, and that's where I grew up in Ohio, and if there was a tornado coming, you heard the sirens. And I remember when I first moved in town, I'd hear that siren, I'd be like, is there a tornado? But they do it just for auto accidents, apparently. And So, yeah, there's pagers and there's cell phones and there's all kind of alert systems you can now use that would not be intrusion. And also, when you go around door to door, everybody complains. Everybody does complain.
The other thing too is that we do have the reverse 911 now, which we didn't have years ago. And we certainly can only encourage people to, you know, sign up for that. Make sure that if you don't want it on your home phone, you have it on your cell phone, or you have it on both, whichever may be, you know, the best. But I certainly do think that these whistles are antiquated and it's definitely not necessary. I certainly think if a fire truck is coming down the road and it's blaring its whistle, and it certainly is a big enough vehicle that people are going to get out of the way, I don't think they're going to stand in the way of a fire truck. So, you know, I just want to thank Kara Matunis for coming forth with this. And I appreciate all the work that she put into this and all the suggestions and everything that she has in her letter. It certainly isn't biased. As a matter of fact, she at one time was a volunteer over in Spring Lake, so she knows the importance of, you know, the fire company and the first aid and everything else. And I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't introduce Kara. She does happen to be here in the back of the room this evening with us, but you know, she certainly has presented this at a very good time, and again, Kara, I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I agree also. I think the alarm is way too loud, and I don't think it's necessary in this day and age.
No?
I would like to take this under my charge and
I'm trying to,
You have it, sir.
Okay.
I know what can
I
be
definitely
done.
think
Okay.
it's
Just
definitely,
work with the fire department.
it's definitely a technology that's been outdated in every way, shape, or
Think
form.
Flintstones.
I will. I will get, yeah, I will get involved, yeah.
Ms. Bibber, you have any reports?
No, I do not.
Mr. Schuler?
You requested that we look at the swings, and we looked at them. The ones in Heller Park were underwater. I couldn't really get to them. We looked at the ones in the community center, and we're investigating changing the chains on them.
Thank you. That's it, right? No more reports. No ordinance introduction at this time. New business, we have resolutions. This resolution R 2013-81. This is the amended municipal budget, 2013 budget.
Yes, Mayor, and as we indicated earlier in the evening, with the adoption of the amendment, we are now in a position to adopt the budget as it has been amended. Public hearing has now been held on both the original budget as well as the amendment, and it's left in the council's discretion as to how we move forward.
Do you have a motion to adopt?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mr. Dibbert?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbaugh?
Yes.
And with that, Mayor, if I may just thank Mr. Barrett as well as Mr. Digger, Chair of the Finance Committee, as well as the entire council. This has been an extremely difficult budget preparation season, not made easy by our interaction with the state, but again, my thanks to Mr. Barrett and his staff. And I think I'm supposed to ask you now that the budget's adopted, John, what do you have planned?
I'm going to Disney World right now. Literally. Thank you very much.
I'll be right behind you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Jay. You did your share of work on it as well, Jay. We thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
You did a great job.
It's going to be a very tight budget year from going forward to the end of the year, but we'll survive.
You're up for the task.
Roll call, please.
Actually, we did the roll call.
Oh, we did it.
Next item.
We're good, we're good, Butch.
Next one.
Next one. R 2013-82. This is the employees for the summer recreation program. I believe everyone had a list of the salaries and the names? Yes. It is motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2013-83, authorizing the interlocal shared service with the Board of Education, Spring Lake Heights Board of Education. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions? Tom? Yes, go ahead.
There was a section where it says hours of, just to be clear, it's more housekeeping.
Yes.
Hours of operation. In the event that a situation arises where a recipient requests that the provider's personnel perform services outside the scope of normal workday, the recipient shall reimburse the provider for all costs associated with the performance of those services, including applicable overtime charges. I guess the question is, a lot of times when you have a snow situation, sidewalks in front of the school have to be cleared early before,
If you have school, yes. No, they have to be clear regardless, yes.
Right, they're gonna have to be clear them anyway, but they could, let's say it's like, sometimes they have some snow event, but it's not that much. They could have school.
Yeah.
Do you think this is gonna make the school just delay opening at times to save a few pennies, or?
If I may, this is essentially a renewal of the existing contract. That portion has not been changed. In fact, the only item that has been changed with this agreement is that we have changed the timeline so that this contract and the next one dealing with the use of facilities now come up at the same time. Previously, they were staggered, so that one was in January to December. So
We're not taking over additional duties, like we're not doing snow removal, because I think they usually have the maintenance people over there do the snow.
Right, we do provide snow plowing at the parking lot. as
But not
outlined-
the
as
sidewalks, so
outlined
nothing
above.
really has changed there. Okay,
That's
that's
my
all.
understanding as well.
Thank you. Anything else? A roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Resolution R 2013-84, 85, I'm sorry.
No, we're on 84.
84, correct, yes. This is authorizing the agreement for the use of the school facilities. This is different, okay? With Spring Lake Heights Board of Education. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Any questions on this? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2013-85, approving the consent agenda.
And Mayor, I would just note that there was a revised consent agenda distributed that included the second item, which is the outdoor music permit.
Motion and a second, please.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Need a financial resolution, motion to move the bills to the finance committee.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2013-86, approving the payment claims on June 20th, 2013 bills list.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Resolution R 2013-87, executing settlement with Mary Grace. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions?
Does somebody want to explain what it is?
This is the agreement for settlement for retirement of Mary Grace Newhouse.
Yes, but I mean, are you going to explain to the public? Okay.
Uh,
This is basically, oh, you already.
If you'd like me to, I'd be happy
Okay,
to.
okay, go ahead.
explain it.
As I think the council is aware, and it has been a subject of some closed session discussions, most recently in the past month, there have been outstanding issues related to salary for the years 2009 through 2012. This resolution authorizes the settlement of those items in dispute and provides for payment of back salary, as well as the provides for a retirement date effective September 30th position.
And the settlement, so therefore it's back salary, so it is pensionable.
That's correct.
Do you want to comment first?
I'm not going to support it.
Okay. This is fiscal irresponsibility. And I'll be quite honest, this is what I ran, I ran against this. I campaigned against all of this. We don't buy people out of jobs. We don't give packages with the taxpayers' money. We don't give people with golden parachutes. This is the third time within a year that this has happened. It's very discouraging to watch this happen again. And, you know, we all ran on this. And, you know, these are all very good civil servants. They've done a great job. Honestly, folks, they've been compensated. They're compensated well in their salaries. They get their boat, what Chris Christie calls their boat check of all their accrued vacation time and vacation and sick time. And you know, they also get a fully funded taxpayer's pension, which is 70% of their wages. So then, you know, this isn't just a $20,000 settlement. You know, we have to, this is pensionable money for the next 25 years. And, you know, I'm completely against this. I'm against this policy that we're having here. And it shouldn't happen. And if anybody says anything about it being a tenured position, it doesn't matter. The last one wasn't even a tenured position, and they gave him $100,000 worth of medical.
That's a complete distortion. There are two separate letters from two separate attorneys recognizing that that back pay is pay that she's entitled to as a tenured employee of this borough, and she would be entitled to that as an employee of any borough had the same thing occur. The fact of the matter is, it is a back pay issue. It has been settled. It allows the town to save, starting January 1st, and actually sooner, starting September 30th, because that's when the retirement becomes effective. We'll be saving that money immediately, right then. We'll be saving $115,000 worth of pay and health care benefits going forward, starting October 1st. To say that it's a golden parachute is an absolute distortion. It is nowhere near that. And if you were being honest about this discussion, you would recognize that this has been a discussion before this council, not just in this year, but in prior years under the prior mayor's administration, where they absolutely went out of their way to not give raises to these people who were tenured or what are called statutory employees, who are supposed to be given these raises by law. We were breaking the law.
No,
Two separate attorneys have issued, excuse me, I have the floor. Two separate attorneys have issued opinions on this. What I don't understand is your consistent want to, as we move now, the highest paid people off the payroll, we're actually getting it done and moving forward in a cost savings and cost effective way. But you feel it necessary to kick every employee in Spring Lake Heights as they walk out the door. You have a need each and every time to attack these people. It is wrong, dead wrong. That's what you're doing.
I am attacking no one. I'm talking.
That's a lie.
I'm attacking the fact that this is what's wrong with New Jersey. This is the reason why our pension,
saving
pension is
$115,000
bankrupt,
is wrong.
and you're giving her pensionable money. And if there was two petitions that were taken up by the people and that many people out here signed.
Those petitions could not have affected her under law.
There were
They
two
couldn't have
petitions.
affected her.
There were two petitions that were taken up by the people of this town. Some 600 signatures against these raises.
Petitions
And
wasn't matter to the
and we as a council,
distorting that too.
I tried. We put forward
Distorting
Darren
that.
Wainwright
to give these wages, to give these raises. Then the petition by the public is another statute. There is no legal opinion as far as which statute outweighs the other. They have just capitulated and agreed. It's just like the superintendent of public works comes to Councilman Schuler and says, hey, how about if I get five years worth of benefits and then eliminate my position? And he says, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And there's no fighting here. Taxpayers want us to fight for them, and they don't want you to just roll over and give these packages out, and they are a golden parachute. It assists them in their retirement. There's no such thing as a silver parachute or a bronze parachute. It's called a golden parachute. It assists them a little bit, and they already get this big boat check, and then they get also the fully funded pension. They're very well compensated, and they do a good job. I'm not attacking them. I'm attacking what's going on up here.
You're attacking the protected employee law.
I'm attacking what's going on up here.
Good, Rich.
Again, a complete distortion of the facts. There are two separate letters from two separate attorneys stating that she's entitled to this back pay. Now, for example, if we don't pay the back pay, just so the public knows, that person can sue us. So instead of paying the back pay, which we'll wind up paying anyway, let's spend another $10,000 in lawyers' fees. That is a disgraceful waste of taxpayer dollars.
This is not just $20,000. It's pensionable for the next 5 years.
That's
It's pensionable for the next 5 years.
Floor.
You know, get it straight. It's not $20,000.
Hey, you get your facts straight.
Pay is pensionable, whether it's back pay or current pay. Pay is
20
pensionable.
years. It's not 20 grand. It's a lot more.
No, it's not.
Call the vote, Mayor.
More questions? Roll call, Jerry.
Mrs. Cynthia?
No.
Mr. Diver?
Absolutely yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
No.
It's a 3-2 vote, Mayor. The resolution has been adopted.
Thank you. At this point in the meeting, we second voice of the public. You may speak on any item you like. Yes, Joe.
John Tangent, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I noticed on the reports, notices, and correspondence, there was a mention of a letter petition concerning the Lair Road Park, and yet it wasn't mentioned by anyone.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Yes. Did you want to discuss what that is? And, because I believe it has to do with a petition from Mrs. Malchino.
Yes. The petition circulated to keep the Lair Road Park in natural state, more or less.
So it's a petition, and how many signatures?
I didn't count.
I think it was like 120 to 140.
I didn't count.
So I don't think Mrs. Malchino is here tonight. So the petition is asking that a Lair Road Park be
Kept more or less in its natural state. Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes, we do have plans for a Lair Road Park. We do have funding for it. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to know what that was about, because it wasn't on here.
Well, they seem to think something's going on there, at Lair Road Park. They won't be happy with it. Then we're gonna take all the trees out, put in this field, that field, and so on and so forth. I don't know if they're rumors, I don't know what they are.
Oh, well, this is about the group that's been meeting and talking about the
I
different
guess.
fields and everything, but of course, they've never come forth to actually say it in front of anybody, they're doing it kind of surreptitiously. Is that what you're referring to, you think?
Well, that's what this petition
Well, this
refers
is
to.
asking to restore the park to the way it was. You know, the storm came.
We had also gotten a letter a few weeks back
Right. Oh, okay.
concerned with that, yes.
Because the storm came, and we're all talking about here about restoring the shore, and this was a good opportunity to restore exactly what was there before. Those trees were knocked down, you can always plant new trees. They won't grow right away, but they will eventually over time. We may not get to enjoy them, but future generations could.
Take years to grow, yes.
The other thing I just wanted to mention was the introduction of the ordinance about the rezoning. It's under discussion items. Why wasn't it put under new business ordinance introduction? You didn't know you were going to introduce it, or just you decided 10 minutes ago?
they reduce it? Or
Good question.
why isn't it in the right spot? Because people seeing this online would say, oh, I have a strong feeling about this, but I don't need to come tonight because it's just a discussion. So how did that happen?
Mayor, if you'd like, I could address
Go
that. I prepare the agenda based on what either I've been directed or what I feel is the appropriate space for something. As you are well aware, the B3 Commercial Zoning District has been the subject of discussion a number of times and has been routinely listed as a discussion item, and I've encouraged the council, at whatever point they feel appropriate, to move it forward with an introduction.
Okay, but that was not thought to do that until, obviously until the meeting was going on, because it seems to be in the wrong place, the introduction. Also, citizens do depend on this, you do advertise, and you give a little speech at the beginning about it's been advertised in the Coast Guard meeting, and this is saying what's going to happen, and then something else happens. Okay, and this is what went on in previous administrations and previous councils. And it was stuff that I deplored and despised. And different people are here, but the same stuff keeps happening. And I really don't appreciate it. Thank you.
Kathleen Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. Yeah, I actually think that was unconscionable that was put in as a discussion item and then slipped in as an introduction. That really is inappropriate. And Mr. Delaney, I did receive that same petition was sent to the Environmental Commission, and we will be discussing it at our next meeting. My understanding from Mrs. Melchione was that, did she ask you to read the letter out loud into the record?
I believe that, in fact, I was looking for it. I thought she'd indicated that that request was included in the letter, although I don't see it. But Mayor, if you'd like, or with the council's permission, I did have a discussion with Mrs. Melchione and had indicated, I thought, in fact, that she would be here to read it into the record, but I can read it. It's addressed, or dated June 19th, and addressed to the mayor and members of the council. The citizens of Spring Lake Heights are presenting you with a petition to restore Allaire Road Park to its original state by preserving the remaining trees, replanting new trees and greenery in the groves, and improving and making safe the walking and biking paths. The implementation of these recommendations will provide an expansion of the infrastructure of green spaces that conserves the natural ecosystem such as clean air and water, which is beneficial to people and wildlife. In reference to the plan for expanding athletic fields at the park that was discussed at the May 13th council meeting, we feel that the grounds of the elementary school would be a more suitable location for such a facility. Perhaps the council could pursue a project there if they feel there is a strong need for a new field. There is ample space for a football or multi-purpose field, and ample parking is already in place. See photos. This is a more central location and would not have the negative residential impact that developing Allaire Road Park would have. Additionally, Ocean Road Park has an underused baseball field and space for expanded athletic facilities, as well as to expand the parking lot. See photos. However, we feel there are plenty of athletic fields presently in existence to serve the needs of the number of children living in Spring Lake Heights. The borough does not need to incur additional costs to the taxpayers by building and maintaining new fields when the fields in town are underutilized. The citizens of Spring Lake Heights do not want additional taxes, a decrease in their property values, an increase in noise pollution, and additional traffic on Allaire Road, Crosby Road, and Garden Place. Preserving the groves of trees at the park would ensure that the quality of life for the many residents living in that immediate area would not be jeopardized. Allaire Road Park is one of the last remaining natural environments in Spring Lake Heights, and we as concerned citizens would like it to remain as such. Please strongly consider the attached petition and voice the people in your community, and let us work together for the good of everyone. Thank you, citizens of Spring Lake Heights. Enclosed petition, environmental resources, and photos. Mayor, I believe the original photos were placed with your copy, and they're available for distribution to the council.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add to that an old Greek proverb: a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. I also would like to say, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have to agree with Mr. Vorbach on something that he brought up.
Thank you.
In regards, well, I give credit where it's due. when he remarked about there was no land use study done, and everybody clamored and said, no, that comes later. Well, no, it doesn't, because here in the old re-examination report, specific recommendations. A comprehensive land use study to be performed on Route 71. Results of this study to be basis for formulating policy for future development. Zoning regulations for B zones to be amended to provide for realistic controlled growth based on present lot sizes where possible. And then a few years later, specific recommendations. The planning board recommends a comprehensive land use study be done for the area along Route 71 to determine what steps, if any, the borough can take to encourage the development of this area with business and professional offices. So, absolutely, you were right. A land use study should have been done first. Thank you.
Excuse me, Kat, by who?
Well, once the planning board makes the
They make the
recommendation, the
study.
council is supposed to take the recommendation, and I would imagine you meet with the borough engineer and say, what steps do we need to do the land use study? And it was never done, so you were absolutely right, tell them it should be.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Great.
Ray Miller, Monmouth Avenue, Springfield. I am on the planning board, and I would disagree with you, Kat. The planning board did do a land use study, and that is why we came up with the B3 zone. To protect the serenity of that area, the people that live there, and the quality of life for them. With this low-impact idea that we've put forward, there will be less traffic. If you have houses on there, we're going to have something that looks like West Belmar on down the road a quarter of a mile if we aren't careful. And everybody I talk to said, oh, we don't want those big square buildings right out on the sidewalk. Well, if you don't do something, if you keep obfuscating and throwing roadblocks, we're going to have right out on the sidewalk, big square buildings, ugly, and it's going to look like the devil. We did do a land use study, and that's why we came up with this.
Where is it? Where's the land use study?
It's right there in front of you. You hate calling for specifications.
I don't have anything. We didn't even.
You have our recommendation. Now we can move forward. You move it back to us. We go over it, and then we bring it back to you. That's the way it's done.
We don't have any.
Mr.
Miller, I hate to tell you, we have nothing. We have nothing trying to fight it with anything.
It's in the ordinance.
Anyone else like to speak? John?
John Lewis, Prospect Avenue. In the thing about buying Mary Grace, giving her money that she's probably due anyway, nothing will be saved until I see this city council tell me that the Department of Public Works, whoever takes over for there, is going to make $35,000 a year. Whoever takes Mary Grace. And I'll tell you, as I talk to people and ask them, what do you think they make here? They say 27,000, 32,000. Nobody knows what the salaries over here are.
I know what they are.
I know you know, but the people on the street, they don't have any. You'll have a line around the building for $35,000 a year. And if Mary Grace's salary...
And we'll do it for less than that.
And if you can, then you're saving money.
That's right.
So that has to come along with, we're going to buy this person out, and we're going to drop this salary to $25,000 or $35,000, because you do have to give her a raise every year. One of 4 positions in town, I think.
If I could just answer on that position specifically, not only can we reduce that salary to virtually nil, you could probably get a part-time person without benefits that pension and do it for like 10
And
grand.
Rich, I know that it could be done, I've done it for 10 years, that's what I'm screaming about for 10 years, but it never gets done.
Let us do
Somebody
it. We just
Freddie
did.
gets the job.
Exactly. And you
Okay,
know,
so as long as we're clear,
We're on the
I'll
same
keep
page.
quiet and sit and be a nice guy.
You hold our
But
feet.
as soon as I
We're on the
see
same
this
page.
rolling back to the same way that it was.
John, we are on the same exact
Oh, okay,
page.
that's all
well,
I
you know,
wanted
the
to
thing
say.
is too, John, is that you can say that about every single position. Every single position you can say, let's give them $20,000 and then get somebody else in for 20.
Look,
You know, where does it stop?
I know there was no need
It's
to
like-
buy
it's
Department of
the-
Public
it's the-
Works. That
This is the
position
problem
was a
with New
yearly
Jersey. This is
appointed
a little bit
position.
here, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. And
But
that's-
Mary Grace's position, she could have stayed there until
So
she
she's
turned to
80,
dust.
90.
Yeah, no,
That's
she's
right.
talking about forever, she was gonna
Yeah,
retire
but
at
she wanted to
70.
retire, I mean, you gotta give her
Tenure
what she was.
doesn't end.
Talking
She
about
was
it forever,
due,
retiring.
and then get her out. But what I haven't heard, and what I'm trying to bring up now to the public and to the newspaper is, let's see those salaries drop.
You will.
Okay,
Well,
that's all.
You will see.
We'll get her retired first.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Fred?
Fred Manger, Wickham, 61 Wickham Road. Thank you tonight for at least moving this R3 forward to
B3.
the B3 forward, I'm sorry, to the proposed stage, the planning board. This gives it an opportunity for everybody to kind of think about this thing as to how to handle water. That's number one. Even if it's residential, you have to handle water. And number two, how to handle the access and egress to this land. What this piece of property, it's a very unusual piece of property because it's a triangle. Wickham Manor presently has a little less border than the entire distance from St. Stephen's Green to the light on Allaire Road. That's about what our exposure is to this piece of property. So it's going to be very interesting, and I think very good and thorough to make this thing, bring this thing from this place where we were at, which is going nowhere, to a place where we got to present it to the planning board, and then we can do the plan. Let's see what we got. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Anyone else like to speak on any item? Yes.
Karen Tunis, Green Avenue. I've been sitting here for an hour and a half, and I know you guys do this once a month, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I know that you've been in support about something. Thank you for being in agreement on this issue, because from the bottom of my heart with these two kids, it means the world that we might get somewhere in the summer and need your help. So thank you.
Thanks for coming forward, too.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again, Karen.
Even my dog.
Thanks for speaking up.
Anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, got a motion to close the second voice of the public?
Make that motion.
Second. All in favor? We have minutes to be approved. I don't know the dates on
That's March.
March 11th. March 11th minutes, 23rd.
All were in attendance.
Motion and a second.
Make a motion.
No second.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, Jack.
Mrs. India?
Yes.
Mr. Dibber?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler? Mr. Bordeaux?
Yes.
Thank you. Need a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.